It's Monday night. Let's take a look at crypto, which is a nice quiet spot in a pretty nasty, cruel world. Hope everyone's doing okay. I'm going to start with Bitcoin. So after our big anticipation ETF, huge weekly rally above the weekly 200 moving average into new highs, we are having a little bit of a pause. Clearly we've got no ETF approval yet, and this is what this rally has all been in anticipation of. As I've said before, I really don't see how they can refuse it, because we have an ETF on the futures. So having an ETF on the futures without having an ETF on the underlying commodity is a little bit dumb. But that doesn't mean that they can't delay it or drag it out or mess this market around a bit. So here we are. Now, if I draw my fibs here in Bitcoin from the high that we made in November to the low, let's put an arrow, or I don't know why it's not there. From the high that we made in November 2021 to the low that we made in November 2022. Gosh, that sounds a little bit like, is November a turning point? Did we turn maybe in previous Novembers? I wonder if we're going to have a little bit of a pause here. This was November, this was November, and here we are in November again. Could we have a little bit of a pullback into January? Let's see. I think for me this is a bit of an important level, because from this high to this low we're at the 38.2 fib at 35,900. And did we get an interesting reaction at the 236 fib? Well, we had a little bit of washing back and forward, didn't we, through this level? Another way, if we take that away, another way for me to look at this, let's take this fib as well. As you know, I like to look at measured move swings. So in a bull run, we would have a 5 waves up, 3 wave correction, and this next swing, which would be wave 303, would be, interestingly 1.618 of wave 1 would be very common, and that takes us to a nice round number of 50,000. 50,000 has been quite an interesting level before, and even if we just do the equal measured move bullish thing, that takes us to 40,000. So clearly, for me, if we hold above and we just sideways consolidate without pulling back too far here at 34,500, I think that we could continue higher to 40,000, and that would be my next upside target. For now, though, we really are just kind of in a sideways holding pattern, waiting to kind of reset before the next push, if you like. Bitcoin has really been beating its own drum and making its own move. It's really kind of not so correlated with stock indexes, which are doing really well, and less correlated as also with the dollar with this ETF news. So I don't think looking at those correlations is going to help us any here. But let's keep it really simple. If we were to pull back, the very definition of a trend, right, is higher of an uptrend anyway, is higher highs and higher lows, right? And as soon as you take out a previous swing low, then you're in a shorter term anyway, not in an uptrend anymore, downtrend. So on a pullback here, the most likely place we pull back to is this previous swing low. If we look at it on a 4-hour, a little bit of a lower time frame, you can see that that puts us back towards around kind of 33,000, 33,300. So any pullback where we lose these 4-hour moving averages, or we say break down from this kind of choppy sideways, 33,000 I think is where we are likely to pull back to. And that's where I will be stalking it. Now, only kind of, even if we were to come back a little bit further, so what would say to me that this is a bigger pullback? Now, if I was to measure from this most recent swing, underneath the 236 fib would also be that. And you can see, look, 33,500 is that 236 fib. So that kind of adds weight to it. So for support and resistance and Fibonacci terms, 33,000 and change is kind of key trend support. If we look at the daily 20 moving average, that's also hanging out there as well. Now, if we were to break underneath that level, I'm going to look for a bigger pullback. So either I'm going to draw it from this low and I'm going to mark the 236 fib all the way back from the November low, and that gives us a really interesting level, doesn't it? Because that then is 31,000 and this previous double top level. So a couple of really interesting levels to be stalking in Bitcoin if we get a bigger move. Now, if we go back here, yeah, that's really how I'm seeing Bitcoin at the moment, and until it all kind of resets. So it doesn't matter what kind of indicator you use. If you look at RSI, you can see here on the daily we are working off overbought conditions. We've got some bearish divergence. What does that mean? It means that the price is making higher highs while the indicator is making lower highs, and I would not expect this RSI to come all the way back to the bottom here in a bullish trend, but this 50% level in the middle is a very interesting place for it to reset for another swing higher. So for now, Bitcoin, I'm just kind of sitting on my hands, really trying to be patient, waiting for this pullback to play out. But you know, if they don't approve the ETF until January, we're going to need to learn some good patience. So potentially at an interesting level, but without a big bearish reversal, this really wouldn't confirm it as a correction for me, and I would only be concerned back underneath 31,000 that we were in a kind of bigger corrective move in Bitcoin. So let's take a look at ETH, because ETH also is at a pretty interesting level. Let's start with the weekly, and I'm going to look at the fib levels here in ETH. So I'm going to go all the way from the low in 2018 to the high in 2021, which is this lovely big 5-wave move. And so we had a lovely big 5-wave move and a lovely big 3-wave correction. We bounced from the 786 fib, and when you do that, your confirmation that you're going up again is holding above the 61.8 level, and that is at 1909 here in ETH dollar. And it's proved a little bit tricky. We had a messy as well, but for now that 1909 level short term is become a little bit of a pause level. And if we look left, we can see here on the daily that it's also quite interesting support and resistance many times. Yes, we have gotten above it and then we've fallen back underneath it. Hasn't stopped it being support and resistance. We could also draw this as a parallel channel after a 3-wave correction, and that also gives us a kind of third touch. Now, third touches of trend lines, whether they're horizontal or sloping, are very often false breakouts, and then you fall back underneath. And if we apply the same rules about uptrend back to these price swing lows and back to the 200-day moving average and this previous swing low, so perhaps somewhere between 1775 down to maybe 1750 in ETH would be kind of ideal pullback level. It does maybe look like we've made 5 waves back up, so back to here could be where we come back to before we reset. Again, with the RSI, you can see we are a little bit of bearish divergence and we are in overbought territory, so we're kind of due a pullback. But it doesn't mean, you know, Bitcoin sometimes and ETH, when it gets its mojo on, it'll break out. So I think if we were to break and hold above 1909, and because of the 3-wave channel that we're in and lovely bunched up daily moving averages, I think that we could see the next swing higher. And if we were to hold above 1909, the next upside target is 2474 for ETH. So potentially a little bit of a pullback, and again, need to be a little bit patient here. Now let's move on to some altcoins, because one of the things that makes me excited that we potentially are in a bull market is that while previously in bull runs, we've seen Bitcoin make a big move and then it will pause, go sideways, consolidate, and we'll see market participants take profit, sell some Bitcoin, and recycle it into other altcoins that do well while Bitcoin is consolidating. And that has been what we've seen. And so that makes me really excited that we may be at the start of a bigger bull run, let's hope. So let's start first off with Rune. Now, last time I looked at Rune, I really liked the bottoming pattern we were seeing here. I liked the bullish cross of the weekly moving averages. I liked how we broke above these moving averages, pull back, found support from them, and as they pull apart, we look higher. Now, we had a big resistance level, this huge kind of triple bottom support and resistance level at 3 in Rune. We absolutely smashed through last week, and this level is a bit like London Bridge. And if you've got into any trading, through trading FX, and you've been around a while, you know what London Bridge is. It's just like one of those really big levels that become important, and whilst you're underneath it, you're a little bit stuck. And so I really expect this 3 level now, on a weekly close at least, to be support for Rune to keep going higher. Now, I have put my fibs all the way to the all-time highs back in May 2021, but I think sometimes it's helpful to use the most recent swing, which in Rune comes from the high in March of 2022. And if we do that, you can see that we are approaching potentially a level where we could see a pullback, 3.7. So I wouldn't be surprised at 3.7 if we had a little bit of a pullback, and I would not expect it to go back on a weekly or daily close back underneath 3, and that would be where I would be looking to buy it against. So, and back underneath 3 again would make me sell some. At the moment, I've got quite a nice position in this, and I would really like this to smash through this 236 fib and keep going. And again, if we do, I'm then going to be looking for the bigger target by putting my 236 fib all the way up here, and I'm going to be looking for 5.6 as the next upside target. So 3.7 could be a little bit tricky for Rune, but this is a really kind of a bullish acceleration that we're seeing here on the weekly. Here on the weekly, not quite at this potential resistance level, and hopefully we just smash through it. But if we get a reversal there, 3 would be where I'd be looking for it to pull back to. Okay, let's take a look at Ripple, which had a really nice move and has smashed through a level that I was looking at as potentially resistance. Now, I put really simple fib retrace levels in Ripple for the entire drop that we made, from the high in July to the low that we made in August. And we're literally going level to level. Now, when I draw fibs like that, I always look at the 236 fib. For me, is my touchstone. If we get a reaction there, then I kind of lean on it in the other levels. So you can see we had a really strong reaction at this 236 fib, which is at 0.544. So the 38.2, which was where we went after we got above, found support from it. We paused at it for 5 days and smashed through, and now we smashed through this 50% level. So when you do that, I expect it to be, I actually had that as a bit of a target. So I'm very happy to see it smash through it, and as long as it holds above, I would expect this 0.68 level to be support to keep going higher, and we're going to go level to level to level. So now, next one is 0.74, which is a 0.618 fib retrace from this high to this low. Now, 618 fib levels are messy, whereas 50% are usually sharp. What does that mean? It means that we might overshoot this and get everybody thinking, oh, it's all going to keep going, and then it drops back underneath it. But I would expect this 50% on a pullback to be sharp, not wash back and forward through the level. So I think we've got a room for a little bit more upside, and this is starting to look really, really strong for Ripple. So for me, I go level to level. If we can hold above 0.74, 0.82, 0.879, retest the highs, and then so on. Now, if we get up there, I'm going to, instead of using these short-term retrace levels, level to level, I'm going to look at this big one. I'm going to go from this low to high, the all-time high back here, which was in April 2021. And I'm going to go from this low, and 0.93, and the retest of the highs obviously would be a big 38.2 fib, and then I'm going to look for 1.13. I'm going to go level to level to level that way. So good luck in this ETH. 0.693. This is quite interesting because although we didn't kind of get a strong reaction here, I would really like to see this hold as support. Let's go back to the daily. We got above it before, tried to find support, and then when we couldn't, we broke underneath it. So yeah, I'm not expecting, once these start, the thing about crypto, most pairs, unlike other markets, which will have a really big move and then all the subsequent moves are not so strong. In crypto, it takes ages to make a base and get people excited, and then once it gets going, it kind of accelerates and we get much more shallow pullbacks. And so I would expect the same in Ripple if it's going to keep going. Okay, let's take a look at Solana. Now, I was a bit worried last week because every man and his dog was bullish Solana, and whenever you get that, usually means we're going to have a little bit of a correction, and people who went in late are going to struggle a bit. Now, again, 107 would be from the all-time high, would be a 236 retrace level. So for me, that would be a first upside target. But these previous swing highs and lows have been really interesting for Solana, and so this is why I'm using these dashed lines as support and resistance as we go. Now, there's a little bit of a, if you look, we had this lovely big upswing, quite a long tail on last week's candle, which usually points to a little bit more of a pullback before we continue. So as I said to my group, I'm expecting a three-wave correction here, maybe a little bit of a bigger one, maybe kind of on the scale of the one that we made at the beginning of October, before we continue higher. I would like to see the daily 20 moving average come back. So although I'm super bullish, you can see, look at this daily RSI. We're really in overbought territory here, looking very toppy. And I would just like to see this reset. So I think it's fine to be bullish and stay bullish, Solana, if you're holding a bunch. But if you're looking for a new position, it's too overbought to buy here. So we need a kind of, I've got Heikin-Ashi candles on. I would just really like to see some red and a pullback to that 20 moving average before I would increase my position or buy any. So be a little bit patient. I think Solana will give us it once everybody stops talking about it. ADA, what a lovely move ADA has had. Now, go all the way back down to the lows that we're in here in ADA. We closed above the weekly 50 moving average, and it looks like we're in a really strong move, doesn't it? Now, previously, all of these other moves look to me like they've been big three-wave moves. So 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 down. Here's the lowest low. And so if we're just going to do another C leg in 3 waves, potentially we should be measuring these swings. Sometimes they end up being 5 waves, so which would be really good as well. Now if I do that, so I'm measuring from this lowest low, 29th of May, to the high on the 10th of July. The equal measured move puts us all the way back up here, which I've highlighted in pink, at this really interesting previous double bottom level support and resistance at 0.39. So I think for me, in terms of measured moves, as long as we hold above 0.335, we're looking for 0.395 next on the upside. So we should be looking at these pullbacks, if we get one in ADA, as a little bit of a gift for more upside. Again, a little bit too overbought for me to want to buy it at the moment, but only bearish if we go back underneath 0.33. So that's what I'm looking for. On lower time frames, if you're trading this, what I really want to see is a nice three-wave correction, and ADA does that very nicely. Look here, 1, 2, 3, and up we go again. Even here, 1, 2, 3, up we go again, back to these moving averages, 1, 2, 3, up we go again. So I'm looking for the same. Pull back, bounce, one more, and then continue higher in ADA. So I am bullish, but I wouldn't be buying it right here. Let's take a look at OP. All of those AI, so we've seen a really nice rally in Nvidia, and all of the AI coins are doing really well at the moment as well. Let's take a look at OP. Now this one, I'm going to start with the weekly, because this is always a little bit worrying when you see your weekly moving averages in a bearish cross, and pretty much kind of flat. So it's going to be a little bit choppy and difficult until we get and hold above them. We've had a lovely big first swing here, all the way up, paused at the 236 fib, so it validated it, up to the 38.2 at 1.8, and then again dropped underneath it. It was resistance. Then when we broke above it, so as long as we stay above 1.46, I'm looking for at least a retest of 1.8. But for me, I know I say this all the time, my favorite trade setup is an equal measured move back to a 50% retrace level. So if we go from this high to this low, the 50% level is here, up here at 2.09. Would that also be an equal measured move if I measure from this low to this high in OP? Yeah, it would. It lines up exactly. So for me, that's a lovely target to have, but we've got a little bit of a wobble level in between our nice big upside target here at 2.09 at 1.7, which is where we're going to say hi to this weekly 50 moving average, and that's going to be where the 61.8 level is, and it's also going to be around the area of this previous swing high. So expect a little bit of a wobble there by pullbacks. Any pullback here to this 1.46 level, I think, would be a very nice gift in OP. And then, hopefully we keep going. So let's look at this on a lower time frame. Having just broken above this daily 200 moving average, which really is the king of the chart and has previously been pretty well respected, means that we're not likely to drop back underneath this either if we're going to stay in an uptrend. So that kind of adds weight to this kind of 1.46, 1.5 level being really good support. You can see this previous double top resistance. It all adds weight to it. So if you're looking for a pullback long, it shouldn't go, we need to see some red, it shouldn't go underneath 1.46. And big picture, after a wobble, I expect 2.09. And I like this one. I'm not sure I just would buy it right here. That's all. Well, it doesn't look terrible. There are worse ones to buy. Actually, it looks pretty nice. I don't like it when it gets... Sometimes with a correction that just keeps squeezing higher, it gets very choppy and overlapping, which is, hard to keep confidence in, but it looks pretty good. Okay, I want to say something about Rollbit, which is something I've been recommending. Made a very nice new high in Rollbit. Now, shorter time, if we look at this 4 hour, whenever you get a double top, and particularly a swing failure pattern double top like this, it means that we've stopped going up, and it means very often potentially we're in a bigger correction. And so here in Rollbit, it's possible, this is a 4-hour chart, it's possible that we're going to do a bigger 3-wave correction here, and if we break these lows, then clearly we're in a bigger correction and this potentially upswing is over. I wouldn't expect this previous high to necessarily hold as support. I think the bottom of this sideways range is better support, and that's at 0.195. So a little bit of a warning here in roll bit, potentially not a new upswing with this double top, and watch out for some sideways consolidation in this one. Take some profit. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more. I'm going to look at Lena. I've got some requests. Let's take a look at some of those. Okay, this 2 levels in this tower. This is getting really strong. I know a couple, and our group are trading this. 150 is our next upside target in Tau, based on measured move projections, and we shouldn't fall back underneath 128 if we can close above it. It's looking really good. But the next one we're going to look at is Lena. Now, key question with this one is it making a bottom, and is it going to do another leg higher? So it looks like we made a big, potentially, let's go from this move that we've had. So I'm going to use fib levels from this whole rally like this, from the low in January to the high that we made in May. And a couple more. Now, potentially, don't really see them being very well respected, and so if I can't lean on them, I don't like to use them. So I'm going to go the other way. Yeah, not really helping. So we're going to use our moving averages, and we're going to look at this in terms of a bottom on the daily here. And clearly our 200-day moving average is really important support and resistance, and should be our first target, and a retest of the highs and lows through the middle here. So this is a big level around 0.125, and that, along with that 200-day moving average, is going to confirm our breakout and new uptrend. If we are just going to make a correction here, it may be that we just end up making a 3-way move, and we stall again at this 200-day moving average. It's not going to be a very good, it would be a better head and shoulders bottom if we were to test this level and then do that bigger pullback, because you kind of need to test the neckline if it's going to be a kind of good head and shoulders pattern. So I am pretty bullish here that we are back above this daily 50, and it does look like it's trying to build a base here, but my first target really wouldn't be much higher than 0.12. Above there, I think, yeah, very good chance that we are going up. If I put the fibs from this high to this low, the 236 fib actually is a little bit higher. So we could do one of those spike things where we come up to 0.13, and if we are going to keep going higher, then this support becomes resistance, and we would need then this 0.12 level to hold as support to keep going. So yeah, 0.012 and then 0.013 are really going to be tricky, and we don't really reverse the trend unless we can get above and hold above there. But it kind of owes us another leg higher, so I'd be looking for that in Lena. Yeah, not a terrible put your toe in the water look for this one. Let's take a look at Hook. In Hook, very kind of similar bottoming pattern, isn't it? Now, when I look for what's the level that's going to confirm a trend reversal, I take the lowest low. So in hook, that would be here, August. And so this high is the one that's going to reverse our trend, and that's what we have to hold above, because this was the last high before we made the lowest low. And so if we do that, make it level, which I'm not doing a very good job of here, then 1.05. And I think by the time we get there, that's also going to be the daily 200 moving average. So yes, is this making a very nice bottoming pattern? It is, but it could also just be a correction here, because it could just be, you know, we're doing this equal measured move thing, you know, so we go 3 waves up, 3 waves back. And so when we do that, that gives us a little bit higher, 1.093. So again, a kind of tricky zone between 1.09 and 1.04 that we would need to overcome, just like Bitcoin, if we are going to have a trend reversal here. So this could be one, you know, everybody thinks this is a breakout, we make a slightly higher high, and then we end up getting reversed at 1.09. So watch out for that 1.0943. We really need a daily close above that if hook is going to give us the bottom that we're looking for. Otherwise, you know, previously it's made really impressive 3-wave corrections in this, hasn't it? Look, 3 waves and then downtrend continues. Even lower time frame, 1, 2, 3, downtrend continues. So that's what we kind of need to break the pattern of. Yeah, whenever, you know, I mean, really, we've spent 4 months making a base here. So it would be very impressive holding above 1.9. Okay, there are a couple that are at potentially tricky levels that we should talk about. So most of these AI stocks are really good, but AGIX is one at a tricky level. If we had a lovely double bottom, reverse from this sideways range, big strong move, but we've paused. And if we go all the way back to the highs that we made on the 13th of March to the lows here in October, we're at this 236 fib level at 0.259, and we've paused going sideways. It's also the previous highs from July. If we look at this on the daily, got a little double top here in this one. We need to make sure it doesn't, you know, so far this is not a bearish reversal. It's just bullish consolidation underneath this level. So clearly, if we hold above or close and hold above 0.259, we're in our next swing higher and we have got the bottom. But just don't let this turn into a bigger correction. So, for example, you know, this low here in the kind of, it's at 0.237. I think more than that, we are looking at a bigger correction. We'd be back to these lows and potentially, you know, 50% retrace or something. So big deal level in AGIX. Some of these other coins I think have more upside. I think GRT looks really good. Hasn't got to a resistance level. Ocean, they're all looking really good, but just watch out in AGIX. Okay, hope that's useful.